Hello, Daisy.
Hello, Shera.
How are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing okay. Are you enjoying the summer?
I am. Can you tell
Yeah,
it's very hot is
yeah,
here.
yeah. It's summer. I was just speaking to a colleague, client. I'm not quite sure where he sits right now. He's in Scotland, and he was telling me how hot it is. And I said, "Really? What is it?" And he told me in Celsius, and in Fahrenheit, it's around 81 degrees. And I said, "Are you insane? Are you?" He's like, "Oh, it's so hot." I said, "You need to speak to my friend Daisy."
You don't know what heat is versus just hot.
Right,
Okay.
right. It's not even hot. It's perfection.
Well,
Like
I think there's also humidity. Heat is very different in the way.
sunny, dry, 80 degrees. It's San Diego, right? Like that's what everyone dreams of.
That's the perfect temperature right there.
Yeah, I know. I
That would be
know.
summer.
It's so funny. Well, let's get this one started because I am so excited about today's episode. And I want to thank you all for coming. Welcome to the Glass House, where we look at business from the inside and the outside to expose the gap between what's embedded and what's actually embodied. I am Shera Haliczer, founder and chief momentum officer of Engage 3D.
And I am Daisy Watkins, founder of DW Concepts and LumenPath.ai. I always have to say in business today, if AI doesn't see it today, you don't exist.
I say this every week, and I can't be more sincere. If you are here today, thank you. We know you have a lot of options, and you chose us, and we don't take that lightly. Before we go any further, we are reading your comments throughout the episode. Drop your questions, share your reactions. Try to make this as much as we can a conversation, not just a broadcast. We really do love hearing from you, and it's really exciting. I do want to say, because I can't not say it anymore, we are also on Apple Podcasts. So if you go and look for the Glass House, please rate and review. Every time I listen to a podcast, they say that, so now I have to do it. But it's an opportunity to get this on the go. If you're in the car, taking a walk, working out, whatever, you can listen to us there as well. So it's very exciting.
Excellent. So, hang on.
You lost your train. And now you've lost your train of thought. I can tell.
Sorry, I also got squirrel. Something crossed my screen, and it does happen. So
it happens all the time. No worries.
So here's a question almost nobody asked out loud. When did we decide a machine gets to say who is worth an interview? Who's worth a meeting, really? So AI is already in the interview room, scoring assessments, reading resumes, ranking people before a human can ever look at it. Okay, companies embedded it for speed and cost. We talked about this in passing and a little bit in some of our shows. So what they never embodied is fair. Okay, human read the person in front of them. The human can read the person in front of them, and here's the trap: the tool hits the number. We talked about this in one of our stories. Is that they mine resumes just because they make them sound and look bigger, right? That they have openings. So the tool hits its numbers, so it looks like a win. Nobody goes looking for who's quietly filtered out. We cannot fix what we are not looking to find.
Yeah, I mean, we've touched on this a lot, right? We're starting to kind of delve into and understand. We talked about it last week with Mobley, and we'll talk about that later. Really, what's happening now, right? And I'm taking the other side to this today, right? We also look at it from the outside. When AI is screening a candidate, it's not judging the human, right? It's judging a footprint. It's judging data. And that person truly worth hiring, that brilliant technical person who does the real work, that person is often not what that system can understand. So it scores them low on one end and then moves on, not understanding what that person can actually bring, right? So then flip that. The gap does not stay inside the building. Every rejection, every review, every candidate who felt unseen becomes a part of the record that AI hands to the next person who says, oh, what does it take to get hired at ABC company? What's that experience like? right? And how is that company managing that message? So the outside is keeping those receipts.
Absolutely. So last week we looked at leadership under pressure. This week, we go into the room where careers get decided. So Andrea N is here with us today. Let me just give you a little bit of background about her. I am so pleased that she is here. She's been in HR since 1996 and is an executive and career coach, operations and consultant, and has multiple frameworks and creator focused on future-proofing the workforce in the age of AI. She helps organizations adapt AI in a people-centric way, prioritizing skills over credentials, retaining talent through upskilling, and keeping hiring and development decisions accountable to human leaders rather than opaque algorithms. So she works with executives and professionals on career transitions and coaching, job searches and interview strategies, and is actually proud to be through Shera, Full Circle, is one of my top clients and one of my case studies in my website. So Full Circle's for having Andrea here in the show through how I met with her through Shera. So Andrea is here coming to us as a guest.
Welcome to the Glass House.
Happy to be here.
This is so exciting.
I was just smiling in the back when you were reading the case study. I was like, woohoo.
Thank you so much.
I love it. I love it. Well, I first have to very quickly just acknowledge we have two of our guests are here. Bill Pavone. Hello, my friend. I'm so excited. And he's already got questions lined up, which he's tough. So this is going to be good. And of course, Heather is here. And why is it smoky in New York City, Heather? So hello, my friend. I'm excited to see all of you. So thank you for that. Andrea, welcome. Thank you for being with us. It's wonderful.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here.
Well, we've got a big topic to discuss. And I want to first say, Daisy, you announced how long Andrea's been in the HR world. I would like to believe that 1996 was about 6 years ago. Whenever I see something in the 90s and I'm like, yeah, like a few minutes.
Oh, it's
not. Anyway, so we won't keep harping on that, right? But you have been in HR for a long time, and you're watching now AI sitting, in the interview room, which as an HR person and as a former recruiter, gives me pause. I'll be honest. Like and as someone who loves AI, right? I have some concerns. So when a highly technical person, right, genuinely qualified person gets scored by an AI-assisted interview or an assessment, and the system fails them because it doesn't understand the nuance, right, about their work and the context of what they're trying to hire to fill and all that. What does that mean? What are we getting into here? And this is broad. I'm going to open this up, but let's get that started.
So I have to touch on the 1996 part first. I jokingly tell everybody, and I usually get a pretty hearty laugh when I say this, that when I started in 1996, it was called personnel. And we pretty much just had paper and file cabinets. And if you talk to my son is like, what's a file cabinet? But anyway, right. But so to go from there right to here has been a huge change, leap, jump, adjustment, and so on. But what we're seeing now is that based on whoever built the tool or tools, that's how the individual is being judged and assessed. So for example, if the tool was not built with someone who is neurodivergent in mind, it is automatically going to filter those people out or score them poor or low. And is that really fair, right? I'm neurodivergent. Would it be fair for the machine to screen me out because I may pause during some questions a little longer than others? Or if they have other tools set up, I blink my eyes frequently because I'm neurodivergent, right? My eyes sometimes close a little longer if I'm really thinking about how I want to answer honestly. Or I have a facial tic. You'll see it today, right? My nose will twitch like Bewitched, right? I can't help that because that's just how I was made. But if we bring that back to the tools that are being leveraged and utilized, Is it fair for me to not get an honest chance because the tool was built with me not in mind?
I think that's incredibly powerful. And again, as a recruiter, sitting across from someone, having the skills to be able to draw things out, right? Also to understand, if I'm interviewing someone, I know the team that they're, in which they're going to engage. It might be the right kind of team for somebody to be a little bit different. And this is going to take us off the mark a moment, of course, but I just had a conversation yesterday with someone who's going to be joining the show in a couple of weeks. And we talked about what is it that we're always looking for, right? When we're looking to fill a role, and how do we make the right decision based on the individual as well as the skill set that's needed and the competencies that are needed. And I think that what this is doing is it's removing layers of things, right? Somebody who is quiet and reserved and might be the perfect person for the role because of the dynamic of the team or the organization or the role, whatever it is, versus if it's somebody who needs to be really outgoing, and that's a different, but an AI is not going to know that. It's not going to be able to make that decision. And this is where we've talked about this so many times. The human in the room is just critical, in my opinion. Like, I'm just not on board with this yet.
Well, not on board or not, it's here, right?
And
I'm glad that we're having the conversation because
right.
It informs everybody. It informs the candidates because I'm finding out that the people I'm coaching have no idea that this is happening. So they're going in feeling prepared and confident, but then they're becoming easily and quickly deflated, right? And discouraged because they get this curveball thrown. Right. On the other side of that, right, as a person who's interviewed and hired many people, right, the other side of this is how fair and equitable are we really being? For example, a small tip, right, that people can easily implement into these processes for anybody, neurodivergent or not, is put the question in the chat. I started that a few years ago, right? So you say the question, you put the question in the chat, and you give the person time to think about their answer. The challenge I believe that we have faced and will face with AI is everybody's looking for perfection, or I say most people are looking for perfection, right? When we go to AI and we type something in, we put the prompt in, we want the perfect answer, right? We want everything to be amazing and great and perfect. That doesn't exist as long as we're hiring humans, right? If you want that, build a robot or an AI to go, have Daisy build you a robot AI to go do those things. But if you want a human, right, then let's be real about the human. If you ask me a time, which is a popular question about when you deal with a difficult situation, I might share with you how I was resilient with caring for my disabled veteran father, right, or being a special needs mom. Is the AI or robot going to be able to pick up on empathy, right, or sympathy or other types of emotions or things of that nature? Maybe. It might score me low because my voice might rise, right? Or I might have a certain inflection when I'm saying things or what have you, or I might start talking with my hands more. Those might be prescribed as inappropriate, right, or unprofessional. But I'll tell you what, any interview I go on, I'm the top candidate. And if you don't hire me, then that's too bad for you. And if you haven't taught your AI to read those things appropriately, you're losing out on the best talent.
I will say this, and I've said it many times. We hire the way we date. And think about that, sit on that. It'll, right? The first date, the interview is now the Tinder profile, whatever. And you're like, oh, I like that. Swipe right. And then you have the first date, and it's a coffee date or a cocktail, and it's like the first interview, and right? Carry that forward. So I can be contrary to my own opinion in that something that doesn't have bias and emotion, right, can bring something to the table that doesn't bring that in. Again, if the AI is built without it, which that's a whole other conversation because it's not, but again, so that in a way is a benefit because we bring our own personal bias no matter what, right? Obvious and not obvious, and God knows there have been a lot of problems on the obvious side. However, it's that first, I see it, if at all, I see it later down the line, not as the first pass. Exactly the point you're saying, because it can't pick up on the nuances. And so, yeah, I'm still in the camp, But that's kind of.
Well, there's the other layer too. So Andrea, from what you see, and you're already coaching, tech or non-tech folks, right? How to go through this process, or how they can amplify themselves or can help themselves in the interview. So there's that other layer, like how do they get to be seen or be called out first? Because there's that layer of ATS, which is the applicant tracking system, before you can even be seen. So these people that you're working with are fortunate enough to actually be seen and be talked to by another human being. And so from your experience, what have they gone through before they get to that part? Because I know this is a lot. If we can give a little bit of your insights on that one, because I know there's a lot of questions being asked about that from our viewers and from our previous guests before. So
yes, oh my goodness, yes. So this has come up a lot lately, particularly in the last week with folks I'm coaching at different levels, right? So this literally is from like C-suite down, and technical and non-technical folks across pretty much every industry, right, that you can imagine. So what we do is I or any coach has to understand, what is the end result? Are you looking for, the same job, right, in a new company? You talked, Daisy, in the intro about reskilling, right? So are we positioning you to redeploy within the same organization, right? And that means that we now need to bring around other transferable skills that maybe they don't know that you have, right, or have been tapping into in said job. Are you looking to go into entrepreneurship, consulting, active retirement, whatever that end goal is? I need to know that. Then we can back in to what we need to do to get you there. At a minimum, though, everybody needs a few fundamental things. They need a good resume, right, that passes any kind of robot, ATS, AI screening, and human screening. So that means that myself and others, right, have been trained. We are certified to know how to write these documents in a way that pass these screeners, right, aesthetically, certain fonts you use, certain margins you use. Don't use symbols, use certain colors, right? All of these things that the average person, frankly, wouldn't care about, right? And I get excited about them because this is part of my purpose, right? And then what we do is, once that resume has been constructed, then there are elements of that we extract, right, to create and optimize the LinkedIn profile. Because LinkedIn is just another algorithm-based platform, right, that's looking for keywords and other things. But the average person has no idea, right? What are they looking for? So what do? No offense to, I won't say the name because I don't want anybody to, get mad at us or break myself into jail. But we know there's a great platform out there that you can pay $12 a month for and go and get amazing resumes. And guess what? Not a single one of them is going to pass any of these screeners. I promise you that. It's been tried and proven over and over again, right? So don't pay your $12 for that, because it's not going to work, right? You need a human, okay? And the other thing is, people get caught up on trends, right? We don't want to see logos and stuff on your resume. Like, I don't care who tells you that. No, it's not going to get you hired. It's not even going to get you screened, right? So these are only things that a human will know, right, and can coach or advise or counsel you on. So fundamentally, right, we need a really good, strong resume full of keywords, right, and aesthetically and in a format that's going to pass any kind of ATS, AI, or person screening. Then we need a fully optimized LinkedIn profile so that, again, right, whomever is looking, everything matches and mirrors, like what we did with my case study, Daisy, right? Everything has to match and mirror, or the person's going to say, well, Andrea said she was this and this was the title, but LinkedIn says something else. So guess what they're going to do? They're going to move on to the next candidate. I will also tell you this. A lot of the machines and humans have been trained to give you 10 seconds of review. If they do not see what they like, and you're shaking your head as a person who's recruited, in those 10 seconds, guess what? You lose your chance. They are on to the next candidate. And in a market like we have now that's so unusual and saturated, you can't waste those 10 seconds. So hopefully that answers your question, Daisy, right? Of like, what do they fundamentally need to do and have in place in order to even be visible or seen?
Absolutely. Go ahead, Shera.
Bill is asking, I think, what is a great question. And this came up right when you came to me, right? And it's a little bit of a twist. Bill, tell me if I'm right on this. So you just talked about what the person can do, but he's asking, how do we utilize AI better to get past it? Right? What are the mechanisms that AI can help to try to do it. You're saying that the AI resume tools are not good, which, by the way, later tell me what name you're talking about, because I don't know which one. But what, how do we reverse engineer that, I guess, is what I'm asking.
Yeah, so clearly, right, AI can be built for certain things that help expedite the process, right? AI mostly for most people is about speed. So great, let's use it, right, to set up interviews, right? Make it really easy for people to set up their interviews, right, through AI, right? So for scheduling, right? Let's actually build some very prescriptive but fair and accessible standards, right, that screen the resume for certain things, right? That could be from applicable keywords, right? That could be, you talk about metrics. Sure, maybe you're looking for certain metric or higher, right? If you're hiring a business developer, right? Maybe you want them to have attained 80% or higher, right, of their quota or something like that. All of those things are totally okay, right, to put into your AI to filter out a candidate. We can also use AI for pre-screening questions. I can't tell you how many times put out a post and said, you must be in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, because that's where I'm located, and somebody from Kentucky will apply. What are you doing? Clearly, you're not going to come. Like if I need you to come to the office on Friday, right, to help set up for a board meeting, we're not paying for you to come from Kentucky right here. You see what I mean? So those are the things, right, that are very easy that AI can help to filter, right, or look for, or what have you. They're also not discriminatory, right? They're completely fair, and they're completely accessible to anyone. So those are some very simple things, right, that we can use and leverage AI for. So I hope that helps answer your question. I think it was Bill.
It was Bill. I always tell the story. It's so funny. When I was running one of my law firms, I was also I oversaw the recruiting function. And we would, and this is, in 1712 when everything was on paper. So we would like literally like go through so we would post for senior level lawyers. This is a top tier, top 50 international law firm. And we'd be looking for, the one example I love to give is intellectual property, patent prosecution, electrical engineering degree, law review, blah, blah, blah. And we would get stacks of forget not law review, forget not top tier law school, forget no education, no college. No, I pump gas. And in those days, there was a stamp involved. Someone had to take a piece of paper and put it in an envelope and pay for it and take it somewhere.
That's right. I remember those days.
You're applying for a job. Okay, so you talk about, I'm in Kentucky, I'm not going to Virginia. You don't have a high school education. I don't understand what prompted this and that it didn't happen once. This stuff happened a lot. So now, and I say this all the time, because of LinkedIn and the other mechanisms, applying for a job is this, right? Just and I don't know. It's like they're playing crap. Not craps. What is it? What's the thing?
Yeah, it's craps. Craps.
No.
Is it a game or like some kind of a game?
Slot machine. Slot machine.
Thank you. I need someone in Vegas to tell me what it is. Yeah, it's like a slot machine, right? I'm just going to keep doing this. Put in $20 and I'm just going to keep doing this until I get something. Like, it's crazy.
So, what I've seen, and this has been over the last couple of years, is that, and especially as we continue to have these mass layoffs, right, or the risk or the fear, right, of these mass layoffs, is what I've seen is that people with a PhD will apply to be an executive assistant because of the way that the current market conditions are. People are like, look, I'd rather have a job, right, with a salary and benefits or something like that than no job at all, right? So that has been happening. Frankly, I believe it's going to continue to happen, but bringing it back to this conversation, that's where those screeners are totally okay, right? Of the, there are some jobs where you absolutely have to have a college degree, right? My son had brain surgery when he was 1. I want to know that neurosurgeon, right, went to school, but not to school, but to the top school, right? And that they actually have a portfolio of patients, right, that they've successfully worked with. I went through a health journey last year, and I'll be completely honest with you. The first doctor I met with reminded me of Doogie Howser, and I couldn't get out of there fast enough because when I asked one simple question, he said like this, oh, in school, they told me to say, and I was very polite. I stayed in the rest of the meeting, and as soon as I could, I got out of there and came home. And guess who I didn't pick for my doctor? Him. right? But I think, again, right, to bring it all to be relevant to this conversation, there are some things that we can actually have AI screen in or out for. Here's another tip that I'll tell people, right? Is well, two things I'll touch on, right? Again, I won't name the platform, but I'll just say it this way. If you want to apply for a job, go to that organization's website and apply. Period. End of the story. Because what we've seen and heard from different platforms is that sometimes, or a lot of times, the candidates' applications or whatever are not even making it through.
Absolutely.
Assuming these are even real jobs that are available, right? So go to the actual employer's website and apply there. They have a legal obligation, right, to acknowledge your application and keep it on file for a certain period of time. And if you have to ask them, hey, did you get my application? They have to tell you, yes, we did, or we did not, where these other platforms don't have to do that. The other thing I would add really quickly is with the track what you're doing, right? Track what you're doing, because kind of to bring it back to, like, in a different way of what Bill said about metrics, you need to know where you're getting leverage or having success, right? So if you're seeing success more like on, a niche job board versus one of the bigger ones, then guess what you need to spend your time surfacing, right, or doing or looking at or what have you. But also because people are doing like what you said, like this, right? When someone calls or emails them, they have no idea what job they applied for. I just talked to someone a couple of months ago, and I called and I said, hi, I'm calling from blah. You applied for blah. And the person said, I have no idea what you're talking about. Why are you calling me? So I repeated myself, and then it clicked. They were like, oh yeah, I did. And then they tried to clean it up. They're like, oh, I get a lot of spam callers. You do not get more spam callers than I do. Thank you. But anyway, so I already, right, as a human was like, I'm not sure about this candidate, right? They weren't prepared. They didn't know why I was calling. And frankly, they were rude and unprofessional. So, you know what I mean? So again, there are ways that we can leverage technology to our benefit that don't have to be discriminatory or baked in bias. And then you reminded me of one last thing, which is affinity bias, right? You talked about the law firm. One of the shows I love to watch, and I was really old getting to it, was Suits. And Suits, right? They only hired people from the one we won't name, Ivy League, right? Until our buddy busted up in there with his no degree and stuff like that. But affinity bias is real, right? And so again, and remember, the people that are creating these tools or even these questions and things like that, they do, as you said, bring that bias to that process. So we want to remove that as much as we can.
Well, I'm going to add another layer to that, for most people, these tools sometimes come as, in a box, right? Like we'll apply it, we'll sell you your ROI, speed, and responses will be automatic. That's basically what they sell. We all know this coming from all the, the HR side of things. And so that's one layer. But what companies are, I guess, this will come from the companies not doing fairly or rightfully for the companies that they're selling this to, is actually understand how the recruitment works, what type of baselines do they need, because they can be customized. If you're just selling it out of the box, then you're really not a good salesperson, nor did you really find the discovery of, how the client's going to benefit from it. And a lot of that did happen in the last, in the 2000s, right? That's like the big selling all this tech. Shera came from that world of, selling HR tech and stuff like that. So that was one of the tools. So clearly companies also need to be responsible about what they implement and how they implement and what the outcome is, to not just, I'm coming from the outside world, right? Seeing from, I see a post, is it true or not? Is it truthful or not? They can pull out the fluff words, but there's also the story behind the scenes that we don't know about what they're covering up, or was this all fake positioning, for evergreen positions just so they can build a pipeline, number one, for future, or just getting names from the database. So there's a couple layers to that. But to your point, Andrea, is that you are helping the ones that are now there. How do they emerge? How do they blend in? And I think there's one question here from Bill again that's similar to that. I'm going to bring up here.
Bringing the right one because, this one I love, Daisy. If I may, I am excited about this one because, Andrea, the other thing that I'm hearing now from people is that and in fairness, I probably saw this on TikTok, but to put words on, I love TikTok, put words on the resume in white, put white text on white paper that the AI still reads, like the keywords, this is what I heard, the keywords for the role need to be somewhere on the paper, but in white. So a person's not seeing it, but the algorithm sees it.
It's partly true. It's partly true, actually.
TikTok.
Yeah, it is. And so when people post something, and this starts from post, actually. So to get their algorithm to go. So when you post, you see the captions, you see all that stuff. But because certain platforms can only take in so many words as well, so you hide it through their text function, right? Because that's a feature that they're promoting right now, or that's part of the algorithm. Because you can only write so much, you hide something in a text box, type it in the smallest font ever, put in all those keywords. If you want to put a whole paragraph or 2 paragraphs of something, to get all those keywords in there, you can. And because AI also reads, the matrix, zeros and O's, I's and O's, X's and O's, that type of stuff, that's the only thing they can read. So AI can read the tiniest print and get you out in the algorithm. So it is true. I don't know about resumes. I can't speak to that. I can only speak to social media and the marketing side. That's true, because
big no to me. No, you say no.
Yeah, but you're cutting off, Andrea.
Yeah, I would say no. I guess my question, and I'll bring this back, right, to be conversational, is so if an individual is doing that, right, what is the output to the human that receives it? Is the human receiving a document that does not have, right, that hidden text and so on?
No, it's just their way of sneaking it, basically a way to bypass what is visible versus what AI can only see.
Right, but when it gets to me or you or Shera or Carla or Heather,
they don't see that. It doesn't affect the decision making because I am not AI. So what's not visible to me in my naked eye, I cannot address, right? And so if I do print, the only way I would probably see it, if I print it and I see this little tiny little thing that's like a line in the bottom, but it's all jumbled upwards, unless you expand it through, your technology. And paper itself, if you print it, it seems like it's just nothing, because a human cannot see those tiny little, whatever 0.1 font, whatever they put in there. But it could possibly go.
What this is reminding me of, going back to 1996. The visual, I'm such a visual thinker. Do you remember when we were kids and there was that pen that you could write and it was invisible ink? And then you had the other pen and you could that is the vision that is coming into my head right now. The invisible ink pen.
That's the idea.
So what bothers me about this is that it's avoidable. My response or a question back would be, why do we need to have that be the way that this works? Right?
Because people are saying that they're not
it the way that it should be built from the very beginning, right? To give everybody a chance, right? So that the people don't have to use the invisible pen, right? Like a long time, I guess, and maybe that's just me. Maybe that's the 1996 in me, but that's just how I'm feeling about it. But also, I think, is it Catherine had a question, right?
Catherine had some great comments.
Yeah. So she says, what does she say? She's saying, okay, so this is a different one. Here's what keeps going. If AI is now answering who's the best in your field, most experts are invisible because their real expertise never made it online. Oh, that's a Daisy question, and how you can use our case study, Daisy, for this.
Daisy, hold on to that one. Let's give Catherine.
Let's have Andrea answer this one.
Yeah. So, okay. So AI is hiring exposes leadership fast. The tools show you exactly how your people think and decide. Have you seen a company look at what the AI revealed about the culture? Okay. So again, speaking from experience, what I see, Catherine, is that leaders, bless their hearts, they tack AI on to already broken systems. So all they're doing is amplifying, right? Poor leadership, right? Lack of character, lack of integrity, any of the things that are broken within the culture. Adding AI to it is just going to be an expensive problem that you're going to have to solve down the road. So again, in my experience, let's figure out, right, culturally, right, what is the culture? And I don't mean the words on the wall in the conference room. I've worked at a place like that, and it's not real, right? Those words in the conference room wall are just words in the wall if those leaders are not living them every single day, which a lot of them don't. So again, right, in order for AI to work for anybody at any level, you have to figure out, what are we doing? What are we doing it for, right? Who is it serving? But also, do we even need AI for this? There are some things that, and I love AI, that we don't need AI for, right? So let's not bring it in if we don't need to. Let's have humans do what humans should do and have AI do what AI does.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that there is something so inherently missed when we look at developing culture in an organization. And this is not the episode for this. We've talked about it before. We'll continue to talk about it in the future. But I built a methodology around embodiment, right? Not embedding something because you want to have posters on a wall, or you want to have, a saying on your website that tells people what the company is about. If what is going on in an organization truly isn't embodied in every aspect, you're right, none of it matters, because it's the human beings ultimately they're going to do this. And I used to say, when I was selling HR technology, I always used to say, look, pardon my expression, my bag of crap is pretty much the same like every other bag of crap. Like, it's all the same stuff fundamentally, right? It's going to come down to price. It's going to come down to what you like. It's who you like, etc. I said, and I can go out and I can buy the most expensive software out there, and I can put every bell and whistle on it. And I always say, so like I equate it to buying a treadmill, right? I could go out and buy the most expensive treadmill in the world, and I can have Jillian Michaels screaming at me from The Biggest Loser, and I can have it, all the things, and it could be the most amazing thing in the whole world. And guess what? If I hang my clothes on it, when I stick it in the corner of my bedroom, my butt's not getting any smaller. So it doesn't really matter. And now I think with AI, it's problems are surfacing faster. We're seeing all of this at such a rapid pace. Heather wrote earlier that doing the easy apply thing is giving people a carpal tunnel. I think that's so true, by the way. And if any of you need the best recruiter in the world, contact Heather, because she's amazing and she'll find you a job, hopefully. But in her field. But I think that we're missing the mark. Right? These are incredible tools. They have amazing value. We all love AI. We think it's great. I use it all day, every day. And yesterday I was cursing at it. I was yelling at it. I was cursing at it. I was writing, cursing at it. I was talking, cursing at it. And Bill's like, it's software. Oh, shelfware. Yeah. It's technology. And I was listening to something today. I don't know where. Somebody said, I was talking to ChatGPT, and the person said, no, you're not. You're not having a conversation with ChatGPT. And my head exploded when I heard that, because that's where we're going. We think it's like talking to a friend or it's not. Get that clear. It is not a human.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, my friend. Thank you, my friend. So I'm going to solid. And Brianna, do you have something to say with what Shera said first? So I'm going to tie this into Catherine's question. I don't want to ignore her question either. So Shera, is that, are we talking? We're not. We are typing and answering a question. And so in my world, that's why we call it answer engine optimization. Are you an answer? Are you getting an answer? An answer can also, just like Google, we were talking to Google and asking it for keywords and a question. It's no different, but AI has better answers and has human-like answers is the difference. Whereas Google was keyword driven, right? And so in the world that we live in, AI is no different than a search, okay? But it has more data. I love AI. AI, and that's why I'm in this AEO space. So, Catherine, to answer your question, how this keeps you up at night? How do you see? How are you seeing? How can it be recommended as the best? How would the AI say, would you recommend me? The answer is not, are you the best? Or the answer is, would you recommend me? Okay, let's be truthful about that. In Google, you ranked, and people like rankings. People like to be number one, number two. That's the competitive nature in being human. But at the end of the day, when Google first started, think about it. We're just searching and researching for some sort of information and data, right? That's what Google came out with, right? And then it became like, oh, when you search for me, how do I get to the front of the page? Because there's so many keywords that come up with these words, right? Then Google started to monetize on that.
Right.
All right, you want to be in the front? Let's get you in the front. We'll create some algorithm that gets you in the front. Pay us X amount of money, $10,000 a month, if you really want to be at the top page, right? Over the years, and then marketing companies start to build around it because it was work to do that as an own business. So now in the AEO world, it's no different. The platform has just changed into you cannot rank yourself. That's, if you ask AI to rank it, it will rank it. But remember, you have to ask it to rank it. If you're just going to ask, who would you recommend? It would recommend, so Catherine, how you start is your entity solid enough? So a good story for this is Andrea, right? So she came out and go, nobody can find me. There's so many in the same name as me. I want my consulting company to show up. It's not showing up. I am showing up somehow, a little bit here and there. And so the thing with AI, it's all your digital footprint. It's consistency. AI is math. And our very first guest, when he said it, was very impactful for me. It's probabilities.
Yeah.
It's data. So it likes structure, it likes data. So if your digital footprint is all over the place and your words, just like Andrea said, your words need to matter in the algorithm that she's looking at. So it's no different how she's lining up the LinkedIn words on the keywords. Make sure it's aligned with your website. The agentic part of the web browser has changed in Google, not just Google, but all the other browsers. The agentic part makes that decision for you before the human can even finish typing. They type in your name before the question is asked of what they want to ask about me or Shera or Andrea. AI has already made a decision based on what's out there. So if your entity is not right, your foundation, and I call it branding. If your brand is not solid, you don't know who your customers are, because you're not just speaking about yourself. How are you speaking to your audience as you talk about yourself? That's what AI is looking for. AI is looking for human answers, human beings that exist, so that they can give it back to the human. Okay? Even though they are robots, they are taught to look for human-like answers. Does AI know that it's written by AI? To a certain degree, but not all of it. It's looking for certain nuances to there. So I say, to answer your question, Catherine, by the way, Catherine's going to be our guest next week as well, you start with your brand. Your branding, I don't care what you say. You get little tricks and tools that you do that you hear from social media. Go on Reddit. Go write a whole bunch of blogs every day. You know what I mean? Those do matter. Don't get me wrong. Those are the things I teach. And I tell my clients to do. But it's not about that. It's the consistency, and do you know your clients? Because if you're just the next other consultant that says, oh, we help you optimize your systems, or we save you ROI on implementing AI, you're just another consultant out there. What is your differentiator? In your case, Shera, it's your MIA, your embodied framework. Like, you really talk to the humans about, it's more than just creating policies and, OD, metrics. It's about living it, right? It's about performing it and making the humans involved. In Andrea, she actually touches people to get jobs and get the organization straightened up. So that's her differentiator. And how many frameworks do you have now? I counted 9 the last time. Are you at 12?
No, we have 6, and then I have a tagline. So
okay, so that's her differentiator. Nobody knew about that until I asked her, right? She said, oh, they're just hidden. I teach them, blah, 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 blah. I'm going, girl, those are bragging rights. That's your credibility. And then she proceeded to tell me, oh, I've appeared in MSN. I've appeared in blah. I've got an article here, blah, 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 blah. I said, where is that all written? He goes, nowhere. And I said, well, those need to be published. Those need to be associated to what makes you different, Andrea, than the other Andreas out there. But by the way, Andrea N. Grant is who you need to be looking for. For that. So,
what hit me there is so interesting. Andrea, you went like this, right? That has great value, right? And the AI doesn't find it because it's not anywhere that it can look, and it doesn't know to ask, is there something else I'm missing? I would say that's what exists inside organizations today. So much is in here, right? And when companies, when tech is saying we're going to replace all your people because it's going to be so automated and it's going to be so wonderful, and guess what? Nobody gets this, right?
That's right.
Nobody can download what we inherently know. Right. If an hour ago somebody had said to me something, something had come up and like, I wouldn't have thought about the invisible ink pen. Like that wasn't in my mind, but it's something that I know. Right. So those are the kinds of things, the nuances of what we do and what we know, how we talk to our clients, how we, remember the little things. Like no AI knows that. And that's just so critical. Right. Again, it's not a person. There's no logic. There's no conditioning around the conversation, and that's so important.
Yeah. And so your consistency and clarity of who you are, really, that's the number one thing. You just have to show up that AI knows everything about you, so that when they type in your name, it's not hallucinating, it's not pulling from old data. And then AI does merge all that data and mix thing up to make it sound like, oh, this is the entire entity, this is the whole life story of Andrea, which it isn't, until you fix those little things. Even the directory that you signed up for 10 years ago that you didn't even realize, all of a sudden it starts surfacing. All of these old stuff that you never probably knew you did or has put out there do exist. Google also now has a lot of agentic stuff going on the back end that people haven't caught up yet. Google Business Profile is a number. People going, well, I don't need that. I don't have a storefront. Well, you actually do, my friends, because that's how Google gets the ratings and how they rank you, number one, to do it, to present you to the human. Then there's the, now your social media is attached to Google Console, which means whatever you put out in your platform needs to have the language that's consistent to your branding, number one. And do not, if you have a social media that's more personal, and clearly that's very, very different, please, for your brand, that's going to affect how AI sees you and what it presents back to the human as it asks the question. So LinkedIn, number one, needs to be very, very credible. All the AI systems use it if everybody's asking for that. But consistency, clarity of who you are, number one. It's not about ranking. It's about, are they going to recommend you? Not as the best, but do they have enough data? Because once they meet you, the first thing they're going to do, just even like me, I met somebody at an event the other day and she sold this thing. And so I had to look her up and her credibility and what it says about you, not so much as who's best at this space. She already made an impact on me. So now let me validate if AI agrees with that. And I still don't show up consistently in Gemini because for some reason, it sees me somewhere different. So the other thing too, Catherine, to answer your question, how can you get recommended? Are your content addressing buyer's intent? So that's the one thing that on the marketing side that I do. Is your content, when you have your specific buyer and you know who your niche market is, when they ask a question about what they need based on your space, who you want to attract, are you going to show up? Are you answering their questions? That's why the term of saying, make sure you have enough FAQs, because those are words that people are going to type into the prompts and ask about you. So whether you put that in a nice part of your section, and again, it's in the FAQ, guess what? Because AI is looking for an answer to a question, and they see an answer, it's a direct answer.
So I'm gonna pull back from that for just a second. We went kind of way off tangent, and Daisy, you're gonna introduce our outside story, so I'll let you get ready for that while I ask Andrea. I'm making a correlation between what Daisy just talked about in terms of how does AI find who you are, to then how are these tools going to do the same, right? Because I think that there's a real correlation between what was just said. Having the right information, the right language. Somebody said to me a while ago, make sure, for every job, if I were going to apply for a job, that I have to change my CV every single time to make it specific to that role, right? And I thought, I would never do it. Like, I'm not changing, there's no way. But it can be focused, right? I'm not going to, if I'm doing an HR role, I'm not going to have, I don't know, my tech sales, that kind of thing. be the highlight and the focus of what you're doing so that it gets. So I think it's a very similar approach for the candidate and the person that's then going to be interviewed. It's same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's about transferable skills, which are basically keywords, right? And I'm not trying to dilute that, but really, if we're going to boil it down to it, that's what it is, right? People hire who they know, like, and trust, and they hire for transferable skills, and those are keywords. Quick example, I just had a client that I worked with that retired from federal service after 35 years, took a break, right, intentionally to recharge, also to do some caregiving, for a family member, and then reemerged as I can do everything for everybody all the time, everywhere. And I was like, "Whoa, wait a minute! What? To Daisy's point, who are you talking to? Who are you trying to serve? Right? How can you serve who you say you can serve, and so on and so forth?" So, did an intake, right? Got the necessary information from this individual, and optimized the LinkedIn. Went back to actually add one thing, because what that person had done was they had stood up a business page that had an old logo. But when I went back a couple of days, I said, wait a minute. I said, you didn't change your logo yet, right? So people will be confused. There's this logo for your company page, but there's this logo for your personal profile page. This needs to be changed. So when I went back literally 3 days later to say, wait a minute, you need to change that. And they had given me some stuff to put in their feature section, right, to show they are who they say they are as far as coaching, etc. I just happened to see the thing that popped up on there says analytics. So I clicked it really quickly. And in 3 days, with the changes that I had made for this person, their visibility had increased 10,900%. And I have the screenshot to show you. So it's just like Daisy said, it's math, right? It's probability, but it's consistency, because now everything this person says they do and have done is consistent across everything: resume, LinkedIn, capability statement, biography, etc., right? FAQ. So wherever you look for this person and what they do, you're going to find the same exact thing. This person has since been on a couple of podcasts and other appearances and things like that. So it works, but you have to know what to do, right, to get it to work. And if you don't, you can call somebody like me or Daisy or Shera, right? And we can help you. But again, what you're hearing here is that we are leveraging machines to do the work led by a human. So I want that to stay the focal point of human-centered, human-focused, right? Human everything, right? So that I will say that until we chime off today, is that you can have, and I have some folks, right, who they're like, hey, I wrote some code, to change my resume every single time that I've tapped into this hidden job market and it applies for me. How's that working for you? Right. I literally said, how is that working for you? He's like, well, it's not. So then again, right? And this is not a dig against the person. It's just, we have to know how to leverage and use tools. Just like when I was a little girl, right? I went with my dad everywhere. I was a daddy's girl, and I had my own little tool belt that said 84 lumber. I had to learn how to use my little hammer, right? Or I would smash my thumb, right? My dad taught me, right? You hold the nail, and this kind of thing. So it's the same thing, right? Teaching people how to use the tools at our disposal so that they get the end result they want. So that the nail doesn't end up crooked, right? Or you don't smash your thumb. So, just bringing you back to basics, I guess.
I love that.
Yeah, that's all it is. We are the humans that are talking to it. We are the humans that are amplifying how we can be of service to others because of this tool. You've amplified that. Shera's amplified that. I chose this lane. That's chaotic right now, and people have all these questions, and it's one basic answer, but people are making up all these things that how it's going to show up, because there's no roadmap to it, right? No. So I built the framework for it to actually make sure that there's a process, that I understand the science behind it, and the math. So anyway, we do have we're going to make this a little jumbled up a little quickly, but here's our outside story. It's actually very interesting, to your point, Andrea, earlier when we were started talking. So every week we bring in a story from outside the room. This week it's what's happening to candidates the moment an AI takes an interview seat.
Yeah. So I'm gonna be cautious. When I mentioned at the beginning, at the top of the show, I mentioned Mobley, which is the big workday case that everyone's talking about, because a lot of this stuff is heading to the courts. However, the pattern is real and documented, and AI interview tools now score people on things a human would never reduce to a number. So, Andrea, you talked about it: facial expressions, tone, eye movement, body language, to rare traits like integrity or drive, right? How would they know? And the people hurt are the ones who don't fit the default template. So a deaf Indigenous woman filed a claim alleging a popular automated video interview platform unfairly blocked her promotion. Advocates and legal analysts warn these tools are raising discrimination risks for autistic and neurodivergent candidates and may run into the ADA as potential issues. So this is surfacing now.
Absolutely. And what holds up with that, Shera and Andrea, is that nearly 48% of the US job seekers say AI hiring tools are built with biases stacked against them. Andrea's probably dying to talk about this right now, outnumbering those who disagree nearly 2 to 1. The neurodivergent candidates is worse. Over half feel it. And they are 46%, less than 46% more likely to feel it strongly.
Yeah, so it's the same story inside its scale, right? The tool hits, and Daisy, you mentioned it, at speed, at cost, and it reads as nobody wins on the dashboard. Nobody validated whether it delivered a fair, reasonable, defensible read. And that, as far as I'm concerned, is the return on intention. Why did we buy this tool? What was the purpose for it? Right? Not just the return on investment. So we need to really understand what's happening with these tools, and it's not just some random thing that we're, using.
Absolutely. And so, Andrea, you live on the human side of exactly this, right? What does a story like this surface for you?
Yeah, it surfaces, frankly, a lot of emotion for me because I'm a special needs mom. My son is 28. He is job searching, right? He has autism. He also has anxiety, right? He had a brain surgery at 1 that he didn't sign up to have, right? So these are medical conditions, right, that we live with and live through that a lot of people have. I'm neurodivergent, right? I have anxiety. I'm sure I'm on somebody's autism spectrum somewhere, right? And happy to be on it. But the challenge with this is that, again, I'll take myself as an example. I have interviewed hundreds of times. I ace every interview, but it's because I practice and I know methodologies, right? STAR or SOAR, to get through those questions, those behavioral questions that you're going to be asked. However, I just had a discussion with a large nonprofit here about my son about this exact issue. If you ask my son the question, can you tell me about a time when you had to deal with a difficult person? He might think back to when he was bullied in school, right? He might think back to when he was hospitalized for 6 months, right? Because his body shut down, right? Because it wasn't responding to the medication and he had some trials and tribulations to work through, right? He might think back to when he worked at the local ice cream shop and he cleaned off the table, not knowing that the customer wasn't finished. And when I tell you that she cursed him every which way up and down from Sunday, and even when the manager explained this is a neurodivergent individual, I had to pick him up because she was physically threatening to harm my child. So I'm telling you, right, that these things present all the time, which is why I have a lot of emotion about it. So what we need to do, again, right, is keep the human part to all of these tools and processes. Again, any given moment, right, my facial expression might look a little different, right? I'm a very expressive person naturally, so I have to tone that down in certain audiences, right, or in certain places, because I know that society is expecting me to do that, right? But if I don't know how this tool has been trained or what it is looking for, I might show up badly just because I'm being myself, where another organization or another person might be like, my media coach is like, yes, I want all the energy, right? All the things, be yourself and so on. I can't do that, right? If I'm in a certain audience or what have you. So again, we need to bring this back to let humans do what just humans can do and let the machines do what the machines can do, right? Another example for this is that everything doesn't require technology. A lot of neurodivergent people score much higher if you give them a task or a project, not go with the traditional behavioral questions that are asked. And statistics prove, right, that neurodivergent people are almost 80% more likely to not make a mistake, to show up to work regularly, to show up to work on time, right, and things like that. However, statistics also show if you have autism and you have a 4-year degree, it is an 85% chance that you've never had a job in your life. And we need to change those things, right? And taking the machine out and putting the human in where it makes sense is a really easy, free, cheap way to get those things done. And again, right, as a HR practitioner, former COO, you remove the litigation, right? You remove the risk or the mitigation there because you have a person that's engaging, right? If I'm talking to someone and I can see your facial expression, say, take your time, take all the time you need to answer that question, right? Or share more versus a machine that is scoring you on time and speed and all these other things. You're set up to fail from the beginning. So really long answer. And I can go on and on and on about this, but I won't. But it is important because we are going to continue to see not only the rise in cases, but also employers are going to find that they are not desirable, right? They are not going to be the top employer for people. I don't care how much money you pay or what perks you give folks, if you're treating your candidates or your employees like this, right? So it's not just the candidate that's applying to enter your organization. If you're using this to screen people that have already been working there and demonstrating their capabilities and what they've done for you, shame on you.
That statistic that you gave is a whole other episode. The idea that somebody who's on the spectrum and who has that's unbelievable. We're going a little bit over, but I do want to make sure we do a couple of quick things. So I hope everyone's still sticking around. And before we close, we always do a couple of things. And one of them is that we like to give you an action item, a takeaway that you can use during the week. These also get posted on Friday on LinkedIn, and obviously you can come back to our episode. And mine, I wanted to make it simple and just really easy, and take part in one of your hiring processes. Take one part of your hiring process an AI currently runs, ask a human to explain in plain language why it accepts or rejects someone. If no one can, you do not have a process, you have a black box, right? So this goes back to the idea of the human is setting up the process. The human is responsible for telling the AI what to do. If somebody in an organization can't tell you what it's doing, what it's supposed to achieve, what it's looking for, it's not right. And that's an easy thing to find.
Very interesting, Shera. So for me, it's ask an AI assistant how your organization treats people. Not to, ask it as if you were an outsider, right? Mm-hmm. And internally how it is. So ask how it treats people that don't fit, like what we talked about in the story, right? Whatever that means. So older candidate, whatever that means, career changer, the one who interviews differently. Read what comes back. And people are probably asking, how do I do that? Read the reviews for people that have applied for the jobs. You probably find it on Reddit. People read a lot of stuff in Reddit. Or just look for reviews about the company. Glassdoor is another one. That's what your system is really looking for, okay? And it's what's quietly not choosing what it sees. So what internally happens, but you don't know what's being said about your organization on the outside. So from the outside view, I challenge you to look at that.
Absolutely. All right. We want to make sure that everybody knows where to find Andrea. So QR code to find you on LinkedIn. They can reach out to you directly there. Andrea, if you want to just kind of tell us again a little bit about what you do and what your offering is, and if they want to reach out to you directly, that would be terrific.
Sure, yeah. So I'm happy to do that. I provide fractional COO and operational transformation services. I am a certified coach, trainer, speaker. So I do a lot with workshops, training facilitation. I love AI implementation and advisory, even up to the board level. So those things excite me. But I also like to work with individuals, right, to optimize their LinkedIn profiles or to get their other documents ready so that they can be seen, right? And I say take them from being invisible to undeniable, because that's what we do. And also make sure that they're fairly compensated, right, for the skills and expertise that they have, because I find that a lot of my clients, or almost most of them, are not being compensated appropriately for what they bring to the table. And then if I may, just one quick thing for any candidates that are out there right now, a new trend that is emerging, and this is for both technical and non-technical candidates. Be prepared in an interview to have to, if you're technical, code in the moment and explain the AI tool and rationale for what you're coding to answer the question you're being asked. If you're non-technical, be prepared to have to write a prompt and share the prompt, the tool, and the rationale to the interviewer, whether it's a human or AI, in order for you to move past this screening process. This is new and emerging. People are not prepared for it. I'm hoping that employers will start to disclose, right, what the actual processes look like for the candidates so that they come prepared and show up well. But just wanted to put that out there because that is something that is causing some heartache for some folks and causing them to lose great opportunities.
Well, this is a whole other. We have a third episode that we're gonna do. So I want to make sure we wrap up a little bit. If you want to reach out to me or to Daisy, please do not hesitate. You can find us on all of the things. We have to add our Apple podcast to this. But this will be up on LinkedIn as soon as this is over, as soon as the stream ends. It's on our YouTube channels. It's on our websites. And now on Apple Podcasts. So we welcome anyone who has something to say, who has a position on any of the topics that we cover, to join us. We are going to start releasing bonus episodes, pre-recorded bonus episodes. And so if you're a little afraid of being live on the air, join us for one of those. We will do something that is just audible that goes out on Apple. We'd love to hear from everyone. We'd love to hear your stories and your positions. And you don't have to necessarily agree with us. We love a contrary conversation. We're totally open to that.
Yeah, absolutely. So don't forget, again, visit us on our sites. It's all on the screen right now. And we also have our Glasshouse Cohorts 3 coming up. We're planning the date on that still, but watch out for it. So I also have an event with Andrea with her team. It's an Eventbrite coming up on the 27th of July. And so I'll be speaking about just basics about AEO and how Andrea got from being not seen to being seen. That's basically the topic.
Very
Thank
cool.
you.
Andrea, thank you for joining us. Thank you for being here and giving us your point of view on everything. Daisy, as always, it is a pleasure. We will be back next week, so you know where to find us, and we look forward to hearing from all of you. Have a wonderful week. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.